We start moments before Tenchi even enters the police station. Jin starts explaining the requirements in order to pull off their plan, and we see Wang Juan in a trance of sorts, and it's becoming more apparent that Tenchi isn't on our side after all. At this point, I think it's fair to say that Wang Juan is being controlled and not hypnotized because she's behaving differently than she normally does. But I don't think the same could be said about Chang in the previous episode, because as he stepped out of the interrogation room to ask the police officer who was on standby if he can go to the washroom, he seemed completely in character and didn't have the red eyes, which was shown in the later scenes. Even in this scene where they found the tracking device on Chang and she asked him how could they cooperate if he's hiding this, and he responds it won't happen again, as if he's still conscious. I am now just going to assume that Chang was being controlled and he wasn't being hypnotized or anything like that. And they made the previous episode and this scene, which was shown in the preview, as a means to trick the audience. A little cheap, but I'll admit I fell for it completely. It seems like Tenchi's powers revolves around her holding the hands with the individual. For now, we don't know for certain if she actually is the one controlling them, but she definitely has an ability that works with tandem with someone else. Because later we see Wang Juan, who's no longer holding the hand of Tenchi, back to her normal self, handcuffed to a pipe, and maybe you could say that they just decided to release their control over her. But when Lu tackles Chang and he lets go of Tenchi's hand, he comes back to his senses as well. What I almost know for certain is that whenever Red Eyes operated, he seemed to be in communications with one other person. Even in the scene at the Red Room with Min Lu, Chang questioned him why did he even kill those people, and he answered, I didn't kill them, and it says I did, as if there were multiple people in control or at least giving answers. Then the scene with Xiaoling, Red Eyes questioned Chang on his ability and says you can trick me but you can't trick her. Which at the time I thought he was talking about Xiaoling, but now we can assume it was Tenchi, who is very perceptive due to her heightened senses. This whole situation got me seriously thinking because it made no sense and I had to rewatch every detail from previous episodes and the newly revamped intro. A critical piece of information that we know for sure is that Blue Jacket gave a picture to Lu saying I can't live without my good brother. We almost know for certain that they are twins and one of them is a girl and the other is a boy, supposedly. They are dressed as so by each other in the family and even in their profile from the police records. If we are to believe that Tianqin is the one in needing of saving requested by Blue Jacket, then there might be something strange going on with their identities. Tianqi was apparently a mute and never spoke in her childhood, and now she's able to miraculously speak full sentences. However, the only point of contention is that when she was telling Chang back in the interrogation room about her relationship with her mother, as she broke down in crocodile tears, it seemed like she was speaking from her own experience, but the brother could have known their situation just as clearly. What I am trying to say is that Tianqi might actually just be Tianqin, whether it's through a swap of souls or personality, I don't know, and before you call me out for another false theory, let me explain and you can decide for yourself. Tianqin in his childhood seemed like a kid who had a lot to say and has his fair share of outbursts. So isn't it strange that out of the two twins we see, the only one who ends up saying anything is Tianqi? Okay, sure, Blue Jacket hasn't gotten much screen time, but when Blue Jacket confronted the thug at the staircase, which he exclaimed he appeared out of nowhere, and Blue Jacket just stood there almost menacingly without saying a single word, and simply just reached out their hand, meaning they just wanted the phone. I am fairly certain that they wouldn't do this without good reason. If Blue Jacket was possessed by the other twin to execute the sequence, then doesn't it seem odd for Lu and Blue Jacket to have a moment in the intro if it was only temporary? Also, if you look closely here, as Chang falls desperately, the one who reaches out to him is none other than Blue Jacket. The main and most damning piece of evidence that there's something strange going on with Tianqi's gender and or personality is back in episode 4. When Jin receives a call and it appears to be one of the twins telling him of the plan that they just executed in episode 7. Jin is amused and calls who's ever on the phone a madman, and in the next scene, guess who's on the call? It's Tenchi. Even when Chang possessed Tenchi and they were at the doctor's office and he says their blood pressure tells him that she's actually a boy, they wouldn't put in a pointless scene like that unless there is a reason. It's either that Tianqi has always been a boy, or Tianqi and Tianqin has swapped souls. Either way, there's definitely something strange going on. Before I talk about the scene at the end of the episode, I have to give props to the Chief and Wang Juan. They really put in the work this episode, and had some crazy fight scenes to highlight the fact that the police department isn't just for show and they're just as capable in this fight, because recently it felt like the trio has been doing everything. Wang Juan was done a little dirty going out the way she did, but I am sure that her death will not be in vain, as it'll be a catalyst that allowed the police department to finally make their move. Because last time, Bin's case was probably just settled as a suicide from the guilt he had from the bribe money he received. As for Liu, it's pretty apparent to everyone that he must have known the events that were going to happen, right down to the exact time where Cheng was going to enter the getaway boat with Tianqi. Now the big question is, how did he escape out of the hospital given his condition? And the most appropriate assumption is that he must have been possessed by somebody. And I did say previously that when he was in the hospital room, he was holding his phone in a way that was alluring to the fact that it was also a camera. I can't be certain as to who it could be, as we're not aware of all the powers, but for right now we can safely assume that it must have been Cheng. Now for Jin, where does he even fit in any of this, and how did he even come to work with the twins? What I think must have happened is that when Jin arrived on the scene at the apartment of Lulan and Li Fan, he must have witnessed something bizarre happening with the twins, and that something must have to do with their personality changes. Whatever it was, it must have sparked a potential he saw in these kids, and potentially adopting them, and then left the police department erasing as much information the system had on them. What his motives were prior to meeting Cheng, I'm not entirely sure, but right now, Tianqi kept saying that they want Cheng to cooperate with them. So they want his powers, and that can only mean one thing, and that is to change the past. And for Jin, it must be the death of his wife. Anyways, I hopefully made up some of the mistakes I made in the previous episode, giving you some insight on things you might have missed or overlooked. If you enjoy this content, feel free to drop a like or subscribe for more, as I'll be making these videos weekly as the episode rolls out. And thanks for watching.